you in, but I still can't figure out how you felt like that, because when you would say something, I would respond to it and try to build on it, like I do.
See, it's not...
Anyway.
He was a very nice man, but here's my thing. He wasn't really talking to me, so I felt a little left out.
Okay, alright, I can see your point, and maybe he was just being careful because, I'm your dad and he didn't want to say something that might make me, roar up in dad mode. Rawr, 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 you've offended...
He didn't want to bring out the grizzly bear and dad.
Rawr, you've offended my Krysta. Now I must destroy you. Rawr.
As long as he didn't say something like, oh god, I hate furries. But I wasn't even going to bring that up.
So, let's talk a little bit about what they supposedly look like. And the skunk ape, the sightings of it are almost without fail follow these general descriptions, okay? Approximately 1.5 to 2.1 meters tall. That's between 5 and 7 feet if you want to use English measurements. They tend to be covered in mottled reddish-brown hair. Typical reports describe an animal somewhat shorter than the Pacific Northwest Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. It's named for its foul odor, often described as being similar to a skunk.
That's why they're called skunk apes.
Well, however, the name skunk ape does not originate from its odor. It originates from the fact that there are patches of fur in the face that are very light colored, contrasting with the dark skin and body coat color on the rest of the body. So that is why they got the original name skunk ape, is the mottled light colored fur with dark fur. But yes, their stench contributes to it too. Now they're also called swamp apes, and they're also called Florida's Bigfoot, which all of them basically apply. So here's their history, or what we know of. Okay, the skunk ape has been part of a Florida, Georgia, and Alabama folklore since the European settler period. Seminole myth speaks of similar foul-smelling, physically powerful, and secretive creature called the Esti Capcaki, a name which roughly translates as cannibal giant, like I said before.
It just sounds like poop, the cocky.
Capcaki, C-A-P-C-A-K-I. Capcaki.
Okay. All right.
Now, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization has archived 333 sightings in Florida, with an additional 137 from Georgia and Alabama.
Oh. What? I don't know. I didn't say anything.
Well, see, now that gets to me because we talked about the Fouke monster. Mm-hmm. And the Fouke monster seems to be related to the Honey Island swamp monster, right?
Honey Island.
We talked about it because they, during the Fouke monster episode, because they're three-toed. They're three-toed creatures.
Okay.
So it makes me wonder if those are more connected to the skunk ape than they are to a traditional Sasquatch.
I'm sorry, y'all. I was drinking water out of my water bottle. I call a water bottle a water bubble now.
Okay.
Wacky, wackadoo.
You're a wacky wackadoo.
Yes, I am. But I love my Krysta very much.
I'm not a wacky wackadoo.
I didn't say you were. Now, most of the sightings that have been recorded by the Bigfoot Field Research Organization have been recorded from 1960s through the modern day.
Huh.
But we do have, like I said, we do have reports that are far, far older than that. For example, in 1818, 1818, a report in the area that is now Apalachicola, Florida, spoke of a man-sized monkey or ape raiding food stores and stalking fishermen along the shore. In 1942, a man in Suwannee County, Florida, reported a similar animal rushing out from the brush line while he was driving down an isolated road. It grabbed onto his vehicle and beat on the running board and door for about half a mile before just getting off the car and walking away.
Just getting off the car and walking away.
Wait, what?
I doubt that.
It hung on for half a mile, beating on the door.
Well, remember in 1940s, cars had running boards.
Okay, and that makes a lot more sense. In the 40s, I guess, the cars didn't go very fast. They didn't go anywhere near as fast as they do now.
No, and in fact, in the late 40s, early 50s, a common thrill thing that teenagers did was ride the running boards of cars.
Right.
Oh my goodness, we think the skunk apes are teenagers.
Well, maybe.
Well, don't they go? Aren't they still here now?
Yes, they are. But I'm just saying.
Then how would the teenagers of this age know? How would the teenagers of this age know what a skunk ape is unless they
Krysta, these are just early reports of this skunk ape. Okay? This isn't, it's not like they've stopped seeing them. There's tons of sightings. Tons of them. Like I said, these are just earlier sightings. Because...
Well, and not even the earliest, because he initially started us off with talking about Indians or Native Americans seeing them.
Native Americans.
Now, particularly during the 50s, but really on up into the 70s, they were sighted all over Dade County, Florida, because at that point, Dade County bordered on large wilderness expanses such as the Everglades and the Big Cypress National Forest.
The Everglades?
The Everglades is a very large swamp in Florida. And in fact, parts of it are fed by salt water, so it occasionally has sharks in it. Isn't that fun and interesting?
But mostly alligators.
Yes, mostly alligators.
So you could have an alligator/shark fight. Why haven't we ever seen that on the Nature Channel?
I have no idea. Now...
And they could make baby sharkigators. That would be interesting.
Many of these sightings in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even till today were made by both layman observers, people like us, as well as credible sources such as law enforcement officers, national park staff, and wildlife tour operations.
You know, like the Ride the Ducks.
Right. So... And we'll talk about some of those here in a minute, but before we get too deep, I say we take a slight break.
And hear a word from our sponsors.
Sponsors!
Exactly.
Look, I'm catching on. Yeah, see, if you're not...
Alrighty. So, I feel like we got a sponsor or two there.
Oh, no.
I feel sponsored.
That is awesome. So let's talk about modern sightings. And I have a handful of these. So...
Put those down. You don't know where they've been.
Several infamous sightings happened from the years of 72 to 74, including a corroborated account by two Palm Beach County Sheriff deputies, Marvin Lewis and Ernie Milner, whom reported a very tall, ape-like animal that stalked them through a grove before it was fired upon to ward it off. Following a footprint trail, the pair recovered hair snagged on a barbed wire fence line that had been pushed down.
Okay.
I have been pushed.
In 1977, after a rash of sightings by dozens of eyewitnesses across several Florida counties, a failed-to-pass bill was seriously proposed to the state legislature to make it illegal to take, possess, harm, or molest anthropoids or humanoid animals in the state of Florida.
Furries. Dickon.
Smelly furries.
Very smelly ones.
There were dozens of reports in the 1980s, including a report investigated by the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, where a college psychology teacher familiar with body language cited an upright, ape-like animal with what was reported as non-human body language and movements in Alachua County, Florida during 1985. Sightings became more common in the 1990s, many by motorists going down various rural roads that ran through the Big Cypress National Preserve. Several reports were made by wildlife tour bus operators with corroboration from guests on the bus of upright apes darting across the road or moving from tall grasses into the cypress forest.
Interesting.
In July of 1997, David Shealy, the operator of a local wildlife center and tour group whom had heard stories of the skunk ape in his youth, noticed wildlife bait stands laden with lima beans had been raided with a large number of tracks resembling an anthropoids around them. Curious as to the truth of the legend or not, he baited several locations along the preserve during a time of high waters, driving many large animals to drier land. Shealy and associates reported sightings soon after, with 2 tour group reports coming within days of each other. Everglades Day Safari tour operators Steve Goodbread and Dow Rowland reported separate instances of seeing the creature roaming the area of Turner Road, statements corroborated by their attending safari guests. In both instances, the creature was sighted for several minutes at a time. Both were skeptical it could have been a hoax, as the operators were well familiar with wildlife and cited the over 100-degree heat, high humidity, and rural location that would make a hoax unfeasible. And in fact, one of the first pictures of the alleged skunk ape was photographed days later by then Okeechobee Fire Control District Chief Vince Doerr after sighting the creature moving across a road. Doerr stopped his car and observed it walking off into the cypresses. Having a camera on hand, because he was a fire chief, so that makes sense to me, he snapped a photograph of a large, rusty-colored figure walking away from him.
Interesting.
In total, within 2 weeks, upwards of 50 persons reported seeing an animal with a consistent description to that of the photograph within the 10-mile radius of the Big Cypress National Preserve.
Wow.
Now, in 2000, the Sarasota Sheriff's Office received 2 anonymous photos depicting what appears to be a large, hairy, ape-like creature near the Mayaka River State Park. The author of the letter was an elderly woman who had noticed a creature that had been stealing fruit from the trees in her backyard bordering the park. And upon surprising with a camera, she was afraid it was an escaped orangutan that might harm her family. The scrutinized photos, dubbed the Mayaka skunk ape, remain a polarizing topic. No known ape suit or statue of similar design for which a hoax might be carried out with is known, but skeptics have noted the dubious nature of the letter's story and the lack of clarity with the photographs, making a hoax impossible to rule out. Now, we have to talk about the skeptics here, because the skeptics will love to disparage these reports. They say the Native Americans didn't know what they were looking at, which makes no sense to me, because Native Americans knew their land better than we know it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They also say, well, they're probably seeing something like a bear with mange, and a bear with mange doesn't look like a bear. I've seen dozens of pictures of bears with mange. You know what they look like to me? Bears.
What's bears?
Bears without hair. Or bears with red rashes without hair. But they look like bears.
Right.
So the idea that people don't know what they're seeing is just odd to me. So that really is the modern sightings. Now there's more. I mean, if you go to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, you can look by state.
Yeah, you could just probably get hundreds of stories from all
Right.
over the country, all over the world.